Welcome to the AI Brief from the YPO Technology Network. I'm Stephen Forte. Here's what happened. On Tuesday in Sydney, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, sat down with Matt Comyn, the CEO of Commonwealth Bank of Australia, that country's largest bank, and publicly disagreed with himself. He said the white-collar jobs apocalypse he had warned about has not happened. Quote, "I'm delighted to be wrong about this. I thought there would have been more impact on entry-level white-collar jobs being eliminated by now than has actually happened." End quote. If you listened to this show on Tuesday, episode 71, the ClickUp test, you know that I built that entire episode around the opposite thesis. ClickUp, the workflow software company, cut 22% of its workforce. Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft's AI division and co-founder of DeepMind, said most white-collar desk work would be automated inside 12 to 18 months. Anthropic, the AI lab behind Claude and OpenAI's biggest rival, closed around at a $900 billion valuation. The labor substitution thesis with 3 data points pointing the same direction. 48 hours later, the CEO of the most valuable AI lab in the world, the same lab whose products are inside that thesis, said publicly that the thesis is wrong, or at least premature. That is the story today. Not Altman versus Suleyman. The deeper story on what does a CEO do when the people building this technology no longer agree about what it is going to do. And while that disagreement is playing out, 2 other things happened this week that no one in your executive team is going to brief you on, but you should know about. DeepSeek, the leading Chinese AI lab, made a 75% price cut permanent, and Microsoft just blocked Databricks, the enterprise data and analytics platform last valued around $60 billion, from connecting to Power BI, Microsoft's business intelligence tool. Both of those tell you something about the shape of the next 18 months. Let me walk you through all 3. Start with Altman. In Sydney, talking to Comyn, Altman did 3 things that I think every CEO listening should sit with for a minute. 1, he admitted that OpenAI's technical predictions had been roughly right, but the social and economic predictions had been pretty wrong. That is a remarkable thing for a sitting CEO to say. It is more remarkable when the social and economic predictions are the ones his investors, his enterprise customers, and frankly, his entire valuation are riding on. 2, he gave a concrete example. He had been outsourcing his own Slack messages and email replies to AI, Slack being the workplace messaging tool most of your teams probably use. He reverted to handling some of them himself. The reason, and this is his quote, "We really do care about our interactions with people, and this thing, which is a huge amount of my time, is not something that I can imagine myself outsourcing to an AI anytime soon." If the CEO of OpenAI cannot delegate his own inbox to OpenAI's product, what is the policy you should be writing for your own executive team this quarter? 3, he updated his model. Quote, "It really, in both positive and negative ways, updated me to thinking that the jobs picture is likely to be very different than we thought." End quote. The most influential person in AI just publicly updated his timeline in the opposite direction from Suleyman at Microsoft in the same week. Now, hold this against Tuesday's episode. ClickUp cut 22% of its staff. Standard Chartered, the British global bank, cut 8,000 jobs and tied them directly to AI. Real layoffs, real AI substitution, those are not stories Altman is denying. He is acknowledging they exist. What he is saying is that the aggregate picture, the apocalypse picture, has not materialized at scale. So what is a CEO supposed to do with 2 CEOs of 2 of the most important AI companies in the world giving you 2 different timelines? Here is what I would do. Do not pick one. Plan against both. Build the labor model that assumes Suleyman is right and the labor model that assumes Altman is right. The first one tells you what to do if your workforce shrinks 30% in 18 months. The second one tells you what to do if it does not. The cost of building both models is one offsite. The cost of building neither and being wrong is your 2027. That is the operator answer to the labs disagreeing. You do not need them to agree. You need to be ready either way. Now, the second story most of your team will not surface for you. DeepSeek on Saturday made its 75% price cut on V4 Pro permanent. V4 Pro is DeepSeek's flagship reasoning model, the kind of AI that solves multi-step problems instead of just answering questions. They had run a temporary discount that was set to expire May 31st. On Saturday, they announced it is not expiring. It is the new price. The math. V4 Pro now runs at roughly 1/4 the cost of equivalent OpenAI or Anthropic tokens, tokens being the unit you pay for when you use AI, for comparable reasoning capability. This is the second major price reset in 12 months. Google's Gemini 3.5 Flash, a fast, low-cost model, had its big price drop at Google I/O earlier this month. Now DeepSeek pulling another floor out from underneath. What it means for your inference budget and the unit economics of running AI inside your company in 2027 are not the unit economics you modeled in 2025 by a wide margin. If your CFO, your chief financial officer, has signed off on AI infrastructure costs based on last year's per token assumptions, those assumptions are stale. Probably by half, maybe by more. Expect quiet pricing moves from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google inside the next 30 days. The frontier labs will not match DeepSeek's price publicly. They will introduce new tiers, new commitments, new bundles that absorb the pressure without admitting the floor moved. For your team, if you have an AI vendor renewal coming up in the back half of this year, hold the contract. Let the price compression land. The vendor who renews you in November will be selling against a very different market than the one who quoted you in March. Third story, Microsoft blocked Databricks. Brief background. Databricks launched a feature in early March that let its customers define semantic models inside Databricks and visualize the results in Power BI. About a month later, Microsoft cut off the integration, cited reliability and accuracy concerns. Databricks customers using the feature watched their reports vanish. A semantic layer is the place inside your data stack where the definition of revenue gets agreed on. Is revenue net or gross? Does it include returns? Does it include deferred? Different teams will give you different answers if you do not have a semantic layer, and a good AI agent will give you different answers too, depending on which table it reads. So the semantic layer is becoming the place where AI agents get grounded, and whoever owns that semantic layer owns whether your AI agent gives consistent answers to your CFO or not. That is what Microsoft just defended. Power BI's semantic layer, hosted on Microsoft's Fabric platform, Fabric being Microsoft's competing data platform. Microsoft framed the block as a reliability concern. The Information, the tech trade publication that broke the story, framed it as a toll gate. And here is the part that should land for every CEO. Microsoft is not alone. Workday, your HR system, ServiceNow, your IT service management system, HubSpot, your marketing and sales platform, all are erecting similar toll gates. Each of them sits on top of a chunk of your operational data. And each of them is moving to make it harder for third-party AI agents to act on that data without paying a toll to the platform owner. The agentic enterprise story we have been telling for 3 weeks. SAP, the German ERP giant whose software runs the finance and supply chain of most large enterprises. KPMG, one of the big 4 professional services firms. And Anthropic again has a new chapter, and this is it. Agents are real. Distribution is real. The toll booths on the road between them are now real too. For your CIO, your Chief Information Officer, and your CDO, your Chief Data Officer, this is the question to put in front of them this week. Where does our semantic layer live? Who controls the contract? And what is the cost of moving it if the toll gets steep? Here is my read on the 3 stories together. Last week, the AI market looked like a one-direction story. Labor down, capital up, agents replacing knowledge workers. This week, it looks like a 3-direction story. Labor, no consensus. The 2 most influential AI CEOs gave you contradictory timelines inside the same 7 days. Cost collapsing. DeepSeek just made the price floor permanent. The frontier labs will follow. Your 2027 inference budget is going to be much smaller than your 2025 finance model said. Distribution, locking up. Microsoft, Workday, ServiceNow, HubSpot. The semantic layer is the new choke point. The vendor who owns the data definitions controls the agent strategy. A CEO this week needs a position on all 3, not a plan, a position. A plan is what you write after you know what the market is going to do. A position is what you hold while the market is figuring it out. 3 things to do this week. First, write down in 1 page what your company looks like under both Altman's labor scenario and Suleyman's labor scenario, not as forecasts, as scenarios. Hand it to your board. The exercise is not about who is right. The exercise is about whether your executive team can describe the difference. Second, pull your two largest AI vendor renewals into a single review. Look at the per token cost assumption underneath each one. If it dates from 2025, send it back to the vendor for a requote. Cite DeepSeek by name if you want. It concentrates the conversation. Third, ask your CIO to map your semantic layer dependencies. Where is the definition of customer stored? Where is revenue? Where is order? If those definitions live inside Workday, ServiceNow, Microsoft Fabric, or any platform that has shown willingness to gate third-party access, your AI agent roadmap has a vendor risk you may not have priced. The method we use at our firm, and I imagine many of you have similar approaches, is to map the data lineage before you map the agent workflows. Most of the time, the agent strategy comes out of that exercise looking very different. One more thing before we close. Altman's reversal matters not because he is right and Suleyman is wrong. It matters because it gives every CEO listening permission to say out loud in the board meeting, we do not know yet. We are going to plan against both. We are going to hold a position, not a forecast. That is the most useful thing the people building this technology have done all year. They told you by disagreeing publicly that you are allowed to disagree too. Use the permission. That is the YPO Tech Network AI brief for Thursday, May 28th. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to a fellow member. I will be back tomorrow with more. Until then, stay sharp.